Hi, I'm Varshita, international supermodel like duh, and I'm this week's guest on SNAPPY 7 on Nairobi News. Make sure you watch it every week. It hasn't really sunk in, I think because we're so stressed on set. So my partner and I, Lucy, were always like, when Auntie Boss obviously premiered on NTV, everyone was like, how proud are you to have, you know, such an amazing sitcom? And we're like, we're too busy being stressed to even think about it. And then when Varshita came out as a spin-off, everyone asked me the same thing, how proud are you? I was like, I am so tired. I don't even have time to think about it. So it hasn't really sunk in. But that's because every single person involved has put so much into it. So we have our moments when on our chat group as the cast, like we'll message each other and said, oh, I met this person, they said this and that about the show. And we'll be like, oh yeah, high five, we're doing good. And then it's back to stress on set. So yeah, it hasn't fully sunk in. No. So Auntie Boss is primarily, the stars on Auntie Boss are definitely the house help. So how that show came to be is a private conversation between Lucy, my partner, and myself in the office. So she came in one day and she was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going crazy with my mate. So she was telling me all these stories about what her house help was getting up to and all the problems. And I was laughing because I was telling her about my problems with mine and how she and the watchman are always fighting and all the dynamics. And we were like talking straight for 2 hours. And she was like, this would be a great TV show. Like this needs to be on TV. So that's how it basically came to be, yeah. So it's basically focusing on the house help. Now the spin-off, what happened is on Auntie Boss, which we found is because the way Varshita was brought in, she is a very strong character in terms of she's overly dramatic, she's loud, she's a horrible person, you know. And even in our workshops with our writers had to try and suppress the stories because the character of Don and Varshita kept coming out a little too strongly. So Lucy always said, you know what, we need a separate show for this. Like there's so much to tell about this couple. Yeah. And then Mnet, when we met with them, they just loved the idea. They're like, you know what, we haven't done a really good interracial dating kind of a show. And they said, let's just be honest, there's a lot of racism between Indians and Africans, especially when it comes to dating and marriage. Yeah. Nobody talks about it. You know, it's like this awkward thing that you acknowledge, but you don't say anything. And they're like, why don't we start talking about it and use humor instead? So the spin-off is primarily focused on Varshita and Donovan and their relationship, and you come to understand why she's so dysfunctional when you meet her parents. And when you meet Don's parents as well, like everybody is just crazy on the show, and you kind of like figure out why Don is so afraid to get married and Varshita is just a psychotic, psychotic person. It's been amazing, but it's I personally am a bit troubled by this. Our biggest, and I mean it sincerely, our biggest fan base is children. Everywhere I go, it's ridiculous, and I always get scared. Like so many people have told me, oh, my son says he wants to marry a Varshita when he grows up. I was like, no, don't let that happen, please. And girls want to be like Varshita, and it's just but when I talk to the parents, because I'm actually concerned about it, but they tell me, no, you know, it's because you guys are very comical. It's like you're human cartoons, so they love that. They love, yeah.
It's great, you're a human cartoon.
Yeah. When Varshita was going to come out, I always said at the back of my head, I hate spin-offs. Like every spin-off I've ever watched is so lame and so boring. So I was very nervous, and I think that's why Lucy and I like really overcompensated. We're like, we cannot let this spin-off flop. Like it cannot be like all the other spin-offs we've watched. And it's the same thing I say about movies. Like I hate movies based on series. Like, they're just so because you can't do enough. You have such a short time frame. But that's also something that we've been kind of dabbling with and saying, should we? But we'd want to do it in a Bollywood style, because I think that hasn't been done in Kenya. Like go all out and do a Bollywood style kind of a movie based on, yes. Oh, so Musioka, who does our sound, the music producer, he's like so excited. He's like, if we do it, we will do all the songs. He'll produce everything. We even have, we've sourced Bollywood dancers. There's actually a school locally in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Amazing Bollywood dancers. So yeah, it's something to think about. I'm glad you brought it up. Oh my god, you know why I love playing Varshita? Because I am so the opposite and I love that. It's like therapy. It's like, yeah, like finally I get to like tell people off and I get to stand up for myself because I'm the kind of person, I'm definitely a people pleaser. I hate confrontation. Even when it comes to business, I'm glad Lucy's my partner because we're a good opposite because she's very focused, she's very logical and I'm very emotional. So when someone comes and tells me a sob story, I'm like, oh, and Lucy's like, no, it's a job, I don't care, they you know, kind of a thing. So for Varshita, I love that she's loud and dramatic and she says what's on her mind and she has no filter and she just does what she wants, you know, and I like that because I never do that. I have such a respect for people in film that I never had before. Radio, I'm not gonna lie, radio was my first love and will always be very, very close to my heart, but it's so easy to do radio compared to TV. Like, it's so easy. I mean, you could come in and in your pajamas and do a radio show and no one would know. You could be like pissed off and in a bad mood, you know, and no one sees you. But when you're on TV, whatever problems you have, whatever stress you're going through, it doesn't matter if you were dumped like the night before, you just leave it there and you come and you know you have to bring your A game and it also shows on your face. Yeah. Even when I watch shows, I can tell when I was very tired because it shows on your face and you have to try and avoid that. TV takes forever, like forever, I'm not kidding you. Just for like 5 minutes, it takes so long to shoot content. And you know, radio is very, very quick. So I feel like I've really grown in terms of, first of all, because I never knew anything about acting. And I was very good at hosting TV shows, but I didn't know much about production. So I have grown a lot in terms of what I've learned and learned from the people on the set, the people that I work with. They're the ones that I get the most, you know, lessons from. And it's been such a humbling experience because in radio, I think we were kind of bratty, like, you know, I'm a radio presenter on Capital, but like on set, there's no difference between cast and crew as far as I'm concerned. Even though Lucy and I producers, you know, we're all the same. Cooking, I love to cook. My favorite place, it's so boring, isn't it? But my favorite place is the kitchen. Ugh, it sounds so lame.
You ever cook for them?
No, when am I gonna cook for them? I'm too busy being a drama queen. But I only get to cook maybe on Sundays because we work Monday to Saturday. So definitely Sundays, my way of unwinding would be in the kitchen. Yeah.
So would you cook?
For my family.
Yeah.
For my ooh, I like the way you threw that in. Very clever.
Yeah. Is there Mr. Right, so maybe you cook for him?
Not at the moment, no. You don't know what you're doing. Don't worry, it'll get easier. But honestly, when I think back, at 21, that's when I first joined Capital, around that age. I think, you know, it's difficult because I think everyone's story is different. Some people know what they want to do at a young age and some people don't. I wanted to be either a teacher, I wanted to be a vet, and I wanted to be a singer. But I couldn't I couldn't sing. And then the vet thing freaked me out because I didn't know that you have to treat cows and snakes. So I was like, no, I thought it was just like puppies and I could play with puppies all day. So I was like all over the place. And then until the lecturers sat me down and told me, I think you'll be good for media, then something went off. Because until that point, I really didn't know. So it's very important to listen to the people around you. Sometimes you have a dream and you think I would be great at this. And no offense, like I've seen that in radio and in TV when people say, I was meant to be a radio presenter. And you really are not very good. Like, no, just give it up. You know, you could be so much better at something else. So I think it's important to humble yourself because at that age, I think you're also a little too cocky for your own good. So you think you can do whatever it is you want to do. I don't know if I can say this on camera, but the worst part I kid you not, is shopping in a supermarket. I can't even tell you how many times I have reached, like I'm holding a box of tampons and someone's like, Rashida! And you're like, oh, hi! And it's like, oh my God, this is not happening. Like, it's just, like, yeah, it's just embarrassing. Or if I go to the doctor so many times, like the nurses, the people at the pharmacy, the doctor, they'll be like, oh, where's Donovan? Once I went like for a pap smear and they're like, you didn't bring Donovan. I'm like, this is so awkward. I hate those moments because it's like, I don't want you to know who I am. Like, I don't, like, let's just pretend, like, no, because you're like in embarrassing situations that human beings have to go through. And then they want to talk to you about, yeah, you don't have privacy. I wish there was more support, to be quite honest. I mean, when I was on radio, I used to hear like my friends who act talk about it, and you don't really realize it until you're in it. It's tough. It's so tough, first of all, getting a show on TV. Let's just start there. Yeah. Broadcasters have such low budgets. So you're given a very low budget and expect you to do amazing things with it, which is very difficult. There's no opportunity to make money. When you go to Nigeria, when you go to South Africa, the corporates that sponsor films is incredible. It's a big deal. It's an event. Every time there's a film premiere. And you can see that in Nigeria, especially. They've got that down. Here, nobody cares. Like, nobody literally cares. And I don't know, like, even in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, the government introduced this rule where there was only local content between, I think it was 7 and 10 every day. Like it's a rule. You have to have local shows and nothing else. And in terms of funding as well, my biggest problem as a producer is getting funding. Everything we've done has been horrific because we've done it out of our own pockets. We've taken loans, and the interest rates have been so high. So it's very tough. It's very tough for producers. I can understand why so many producers get a bad name in this industry because actors are waiting to get paid and they don't understand what really happens behind the scenes. Lucy and I at Moonbeam, we've done something different, which is to actually go to the bank and take loans religiously so that we can pay talent. Very few producers do that because for them they're like, no way, why are we paying interest? We can hardly afford to get this production done in the first place. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to make money in this industry.
All right, what's next?
What's next? So this year, we're as a TV production company, our dream has always been, when we started, to produce content for Kenya first, and then East Africa and Africa. Like, that's our biggest vision. And it always stemmed from, and I'll tell you how this company even began. I was on Capital, Lucy was on KTN. She was the producer at KTN for very many years. So she produced a lot of shows that I was hosting, like Triple Challenge, there was Vibe City. So we worked closely and we had a good relationship. But every time we sat down and had a conversation, we were so like irritated with the content we saw on TV, on yeah. And we understood because we knew budgets are not great on local television, it's understandable. But then again, we've been given those little tiny budgets. We've done Anti-Boss, we've done Travel Diaries, we've done Mentality. You can still make it work. That's no excuse not to create great content. And we definitely want to take the next step to try do this now outside of Kenya and focus on countries in East Africa and countries across Africa as well. Yeah.
All right. With you.
Is it over? Yeah, oh my God, I survived!